Precisely 1:15 p.m. is the time. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here is the news edited by Catherine Pereira and read by Chandima Veerakon. Headlines. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena says that this year can be introduced as a more decisive year in the history. Elections to be conducted in future will be held at the proper time according to the Constitution. The transport activities in the Kandy-Mayangane road have been obstructed due to an earth slip at the Hunnasgiriya area. 822 more suspects arrested during Operation Yuktiya. Death toll in Japan earthquake hits 30 as search for survivors continues. Those are the headlines. Now let's take a look at the local stories in detail. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena says that this year can be introduced as a more decisive year in the history. He stated that the government and the president have made a considerable effort to rescue the country from the economic crisis. He made these remarks at the cabinet media briefing held at the Government Information Department today. Measures will be taken according to the agreement reached with the IMFP and foreign debt creditors from the year 2024 to 2027. The minister also stated that the elections to be conducted in future will be conducted at the proper time according to the Constitution. The government has paid attention to remove the VAT tax for the chemical fertilizer at the forthcoming Yala season. Minister Amravira said that the government's policy is not to charge VAT tax continuously. He also stated that the government is taking measures to uplift the economy of the country. All chemical fertilizer needed for the Maha season has already been imported at old prices. There is no need to charge value-added tax on MOP and TSP chemical fertilizer. The transport activities in the Kandy-Mayangane road have been obstructed due to earth slips at the Hunnasgiriya area. The police informed the public in the area to use alternative roads. The upper catchment area of the Mahaveli Ganga has been overflowing due to the heavy rains experienced in the Polonnaruwa district. Due to this reason, the Polonnaruwa-Batikla road is still underwater. The Ceylon Electricity Board says that the proposals to be submitted to the Public Utilities Commission regarding the next amendment of electricity bills are being prepared. It will be forwarded by the 15th of this month to the Commission. The electricity bill's charges is likely to be reduced due to the hydropower generation of electricity last year. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with the local stories, some of the 350 Sri Lankans who have not been paid for over a year by their employers and are stranded in Jordan can be repatriated through general procedures. A special decision will have to be taken regarding some of them who have gone there on tourist visas and then been working, said the State Minister of Foreign Employment Promotion, Jagat Pushpakumara. It was recently reported that around 350 Sri Lankans who have not been paid for over a year by their employers, a garment factory in Sahab, Jordan, are living under difficult conditions. The garment factory at which they have been working for over 6 years is said to have closed down recently. Sri Lanka Police, together with the Special Task Force, the STF, the Army and the Navy, have arrested 822 more suspects within the 24-hour window ending at 12:30 a.m. today. According to the Ministry of Public Security, 273 grams of heroin, 111 grams of methamphetamine or ice, and 426 intoxicating pills were seized during the Yuktiya special operation. To conclude the local news, the headlines again. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena says that this year can be introduced as a more decisive year in the history. Elections to be conducted in future will be held at the proper time according to the Constitution. The transport activities in the Kandy-Mayangane road have been obstructed due to earth slips at the Hunnasgiriya area. 822 more suspects arrested during Operation Yuktiya. That concludes the local news for now.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala.
And on the main news story, Minister Nalin Fernando says a stock of samba rice will arrive in the island today or tomorrow. It is hoped to import 50,000 kilograms of samba. The Association of Importers of Essentials said that measures will be taken to import 50,000 metric tons of samba rice before the 21st of this month. It will be sold at 235 rupees a kilo. That came to you in the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala.
This is Watchlight.
The special needs children who complete 3 years of age should be registered at the zonal educational offices. The Ministry of Education has taken this decision in order to provide a systematic education for them. That was Watchlight.
Coming up, World News.
The headlines of the world news. Death toll in Japan earthquake hits 30 as search for survivors continues. South Korea opposition leader stabbed in Busan. Putin vows to intensify attacks against Ukraine military targets. The number of people killed in a powerful earthquake in Japan, which caused homes to collapse and triggered tsunami warnings, is now known to be 30. Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida says the earthquake has caused numerous casualties and extensive damage. Around 1,000 rescuers are searching for people who they think may be trapped beneath the rubble. The Japanese military has been handing out supplies including food, water and blankets for those who have had to leave home. All tsunami advisories have now been lifted along the Sea of Japan, meaning there is no longer a risk of such an event. President Joe Biden says the U.S. stands ready to provide any necessary assistance. The leader of the South Korea's political opposition has been stabbed at a news conference in the southern port city of Busan. Lee Jae-myung, who narrowly lost the presidential elections in 2022, was stabbed on the left side of his neck this morning. The attacker was arrested at the scene. Mr. Lee sustained a 1 centimeter laceration and was treated in the hospital while conscious, reports said. Police said his wound was not life-threatening. The attacker, who appeared to be a man in his 50s or 60s, reportedly approached Mr. Lee asking for an autograph before suddenly lunging towards to stab him. President Vladimir Putin has pledged to intensify attacks against Ukraine following days of aerial bombardment by both sides in the long-running war. Speaking during a visit to a military hospital in Moscow, Mr. Putin said the military would continue targeting Ukrainian military installations. He called an air raid on the Russian city of Belgorod by Ukraine a deliberate strike against civilians. 25 people were killed in Saturday's attack, local officials say. Speaking to Russian servicemen on Monday, Mr. Putin said the war was turning in Moscow's favor and he wanted the war to end quickly, but only on Russia's terms. To end the world news, the headlines again. Death toll in Japan earthquake hits 30 as search for survivors continues. South Korea opposition leader stabbed in Busan. Putin vows to intensify attacks against Ukraine military targets. That came to you in World News. Moving on to the development news. Minister Mahinda Amaravira says that more than 487 small tanks have been renovated. The government has spent 6,500 million rupees in this regard. Coming up next, the sports news.
Moving on with sports news.
Sri Lanka Cricket Institute has announced that the Sri Lanka cricket team is scheduled to participate in 10 test matches and 21 one-day internationals and T20 matches. 3 ODIs and 3 T20s against Zimbabwe at home will kickstart Sri Lanka's 2024 international cricket calendar. Afghanistan, India, New Zealand and West Indies cricket teams will arrive in Sri Lanka for match tours this year. South Africa and New Zealand teams are also planning to tour Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka cricket team will participate at the T20 World Championship Cricket Tournament this year. That came to you in the sports news.
Go ekak thiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න. The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Moving on with the business news, Cecilian Tea Factory, Kalawana in Ratnapura district has recorded the sale of over 3.8 million kilos in 2023 at the Colombo Tea Auction. Managed by Cecilian Associates Limited and located in a picturesque mountainous area bordering the Singharaja rainforest, the tea factory is a leading producer of orthodox and CTC black tea. That came to you in Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak thiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න. The all new NSB Ithru Mithru account NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
And on the economic news, the new Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Santosh Jha, affirmed the Indian government's unwavering support for the advancement of the maritime and aviation sectors as well as the development of the northern region of Sri Lanka. He made these observations during a meeting held recently with the Minister of Ports, Shipping and Aviation, Nimal Siripala de Silva. The discussions at the ministry also focused on the progress of Palali Airport along with the ports in Kankasanturai, Talaimanna and Trincomalee. That came to you in the economic news.
Weather report.
And finally, we take a look at the weather report. Showers or thundershowers will occur at times in the eastern and Uva provinces and in the Matale, Polonnaruwa and Nuwara Eliya districts. A few showers are likely in the northern province and in the Anuradhapura district. Showers or thundershowers may occur at several places elsewhere in the island after 2 p.m. Fairly heavy showers above 50 millimeters are likely at some places in the western and Sabaragamu provinces and in Galle and Matra districts. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in the western, Sabaragamu and central provinces during the morning hours. That came to you in the weather report. And to conclude this bulletin of news, the headlines again. Minister Dr. Bandulu Gunawardena says that this year can be introduced as a more decisive year in the history. Elections to be conducted in future will be held at the proper time according to the Constitution. The transport activities in the Kandy-Mayangane road have been obstructed due to earth slips at the Hunnasgiri area. 822 more suspects arrested during Operation Yuktya. Death toll in Japan earthquake hits 30 as search for survivors continues. With that, we conclude this bulletin of news from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.